Today's episode is brought to you by the Hippocratic Collective. Check out our shows and join the conversation at thehippocratic-collective.com. Hello, I'm Joan. I'm a Canadian family physician who also works as a restorative medical educator, facilitator, and coach. I create spaces that rehumanize the work of healthcare. I'm creating this podcast to remind myself, as well as anyone else working in a helping profession, that when you are working and caring for your human patients, you are the other human in the room. Before we jump into this week's episode, I want to remind you that Creating Space, my coaching course and retreat, is open for registration and enrollment now. I am so excited that folks are signing up for spending 6 months with me online and then 4 days with me in person at a spa retreat later on this year. And I want you to be in there. So head to joanchanmd.com/space and book a call with me. You get to chat with me by phone, learn if this program is right for you. So head to joanchanmd.com/space. I can't wait to talk to you and invite you into Creating Space. Hello there, healthcare humans. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode of The Other Human in the Room. I am really excited to get to know this particular healthcare human because I know a little bit of his story and have certainly heard his beautiful singing voice online, but I want to hear more. And as someone who has personally been on like a journey of like reclaiming my love of singing and of music in general, I love connecting with other folks in healthcare who also really can embrace their love of music and singing. So thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yay! And could you please introduce yourself for everyone?
Absolutely. I'm Aditya Nellore. I am a physician and a resident in occupational medicine at Harvard. And I'm also a singer, so that's like my main thing on social media, just sharing music and like you said, reclaiming that part of me. So yeah, super
Yeah,
excited to be here.
awesome. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey into medicine. Like, what came first, your desire to be a doctor or your love of singing?
Singing for sure.
Yeah.
I started singing when I was 9. Um, it was really the only thing that stuck because it
Mm,
felt right. So like my parents would put me in all these different activities and sports and stuff as parents do.
yeah.
But I just I hated all of them. Like nothing worked. Like I wouldn't practice anything. I wouldn't want to do, any of the sports. I wouldn't want to keep going to rehearsals or whatever it was. And then one day my mom was like, "Let's just try voice lessons." So she put me in a voice school, and I went to my first private lesson, and it was just like a light bulb went off. It was everything. So
Oh.
I've been singing ever since.
What do you think it was about singing and continues to be about singing that like connects with you so much?
Ah, I don't know. I think we all have those things that where it's like where it's just us. It's like everything else melts away.
Yeah.
Um, for me, singing is the only thing that does that. Where when I am singing, it's like all the anxieties and worries just fade, and
Yeah.
it's just me and the voice and this and the music and the accompaniment, and it's like this. Everything's in harmony, I guess. It's a feeling like no other. It's hard to explain.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah, it's like how do you put words to like it is like a sensory, like somatic experience, really, right? So
Yeah.
describing it, I think you did it beautifully. Um, so then when does medicine enter the picture? Was that like your first choice of schooling and career, or like how did that all unfold?
Ooh, it's a long story. All right, we got time, I
We
guess. That's
got
what we're here
time.
for, right?
Yeah.
Um, okay. So my parents are from India, so I'm the child of immigrants. My parents moved to the U.S. when they were mid-20s, and they had me. Um, I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, and I think from the second I started singing, I knew that was what I wanted to do with my life. Like that was
Mm.
always it. Um, but immigrant parents, especially Indian culture, arts aren't really, a reliable career path, which is fair. Like it's hard to make it in music. But I think as a whole, my parents weren't as encouraging of it in terms
Mm,
of a career path. They were more treating it like, no, this is a hobby. That's it. You can't
yeah.
you can't do anything further with it. And they always wanted me to go into something a little bit more reliable. Um, Fast forward to college, um, 2012 fall. It was my first year. I had been dealing with a lot of anxiety and depression kind of throughout high school, but again, with my culture, it was really difficult to get that diagnosed or treated
Yeah.
because in Indian culture, it's just not really acknowledged, mental health in general. So when I went to school, I was like literally at rock bottom. Like I was a mess. I was having suicidal ideation. Like I was not sleeping. I was just so lost and just not happy at all. And eventually, after 3 semesters, I got kicked out. Like I failed out of school.
Mm.
Um, and so I told my parents what had happened, and of course, at the time, they didn't understand. So they actually cut me off, and
Oh,
I was alone. So I was going to school in Rochester, New York, and all of a sudden it was like December and I was getting kicked out of college housing, so I was staying in the dorms. And since I wasn't a student anymore, I was like, okay, you got to be out by January 1st or whatever it was. Um, so I was like technically like I was homeless for like a month, like without anywhere to really call my own. I was sleeping in my car for a few nights. Then I had some lovely friends who were willing to let me sleep on their couches and stuff like that. So really rotating for a few weeks, kind of trying to
yeah.
figure out what to do. Eventually, I got my own apartment and I found a job selling DirecTV, which was a whole different experience in itself. Um, and I think around this time, I was starting to feel like obviously such a failure. I felt like I was letting everyone down, letting myself down. And I worked through a lot of these feelings in therapy. So I went to therapy for the first time and like started going through
Nice.
all of that. And around that time is when I abandoned the music dream, I think, because
Mm.
I wanted to make my parents proud, I think, because I felt like I'd let them down so much that I was like, I need to figure something out. I need to make something of myself, find a career, and, repay them for like all the sacrifices they made for me because I think I felt like I had let them down with everything that had happened. So once I got into a better frame of mind, that's when I decided, hey, I've always been good at science and my dad's a doctor. I've always been, really great with people. So maybe
Yeah.
medical school is what the right path. And that was a whole uphill battle with how competitive it is.
No
Um,
kidding. Yeah.
because I had all those F's on my transcript.
Right.
Um, so I had to really figure out how to be exceptional from that point onwards in order to get in. Thankfully, hard work paid off, everything came together. Um, but yeah, I basically went 10 years or so without singing at all, which
Wow.
was it was like almost I had taken one part or one version of myself and locked it in a closet,
Yeah.
and I was just this other piece of myself that was just completely different. So I think in the last couple of years, I've really started to open that door and let the other piece out and try started to fuse the two together. So, um,
Wow.
I will say it's medicine was never really like the dream. I'm really grateful to be a physician because I love working with patients. I love what I do, but yeah, I don't. I think it's always been like a career for me. It's not really like the dream that I have always just wanted to be a doctor and nothing else.
The calling or whatever,
Yeah,
right? People
exactly,
think of it as. Yeah.
exactly.
So, what was it like going through medical training, especially like you say? I think if you looked around at your colleagues, it's not that every single person who was in that program with you probably was like, this is my calling and my passion and my duty. Like, people go
Yeah,
into medicine for a variety of reasons.
absolutely.
And you were there with yours, and whether you kind of consciously knew it or not, knowing part of yourself's locked away. So, what was that like? Because medical school is not for the faint of heart, and it is
Yeah.
quite challenging. Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, I think I don't know. I was so locked in to like what
Mm,
I was doing. Like
yeah.
it I, and this sounds, I'm not trying to sound arrogant or anything, but I didn't think med school was that bad, honestly. Like,
Mm,
for me, undergrad was worse because I was so focused on like literally getting straight A's, perfect MCAT score, all of that stuff because I had to make up for
yeah.
the first year of like failing out. Um, So I feel like I worked a lot harder in undergrad than I did in med school. Like
Yeah.
I had gone through the gauntlet already, and I was like, oh, this is med school. This is it. This is not bad at all. It wasn't. I I know it's like it was like a lot for sure, but I had gotten so good at managing my time and like learning how I learn, like because
Yeah.
everyone learns differently. I think I had really mastered that in undergrad.
Hmm.
So when I got to med school, it was very easy for me to just fall into habits and kind of work through everything. Things got a little bit crazy my third year because of COVID. So COVID hit
Right.
right when my third year rotation started. So that was the time where no one knew what was going on, and we were all
Mm,
just walking on eggshells. So those last couple of years were kind of nuts. But from an academic perspective, like I felt fine. I think you kind of asked about the having that other dream locked away and thinking about that during med school. I don't even think I thought about it. I
yeah.
think I had completely, or not completely at least, but mostly accepted, like, no, this is what I'm doing now. So there, don't even think about it. I remember there were even times where I wouldn't listen to music at all
Oh,
because
wow.
it was like painful, like
Yeah.
palpably painful for me to listen to music and not really be able to make it.
Mm,
And I think I felt like I couldn't be both.
mm,
So I was so locked into that mentality of medicine, 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 nothing else. And just all the pressures that came with it and the things that I had overcome and feeling like I have to be perfect at this.
yeah.
Um, I think I didn't really even think about it. So
Mm. So, how did it come back into your life? Like, it snuck in through a crack, or like, you know what I mean? Like, how did
yeah.
you get reintroduced to the first love?
Um, there were moments where I was like, I want to start doing music again. Like, let me start doing music again. Let me start doing music again. And I couldn't get myself to do it. I guess it was
Mm,
just locked away so much. But it came about in a really kind of messed up way because I told you this story about how I failed out of school, like did all this stuff, overcame all these obstacles. When I graduated or when I applied for the match in
yeah.
2021 and 2022, um, I was going through interviews, and this was for a different specialty that I am not in now. But I had a good amount of interviews, and I remember all of them asking me a question like what my proudest accomplishment was. It was like some variation of that question. I got that every single
Mm,
institution I interviewed at. And I don't know, I've always marched to the beat of my own drum. So I didn't want to just give the same old answer like, "Oh yeah, I got first author on this research paper."
yeah.
I did a lot of research. I'm sorry, I didn't really care about my research that much.
Yeah.
I I cared about the things I had overcome, the things that made me me, right?
Mm,
So I told them this story about how resilient I was and how dedicated to the field and the specialty and all that good stuff. Um, and I really thought it would be a good thing because it was 2022. I was like,
yeah.
we should be past all that stigma stuff. I ultimately didn't match, and I was like,
Oh.
okay, what happened? Because I my application was great, and I sent out messages to the different people that I interviewed with. And thankfully, a few of them actually got in touch with me, which I think is not typical
Mm,
because with the match process, especially post-match, you're not really supposed to have communications with people. So that says a lot. Number one, I think of the people who reached out to me and were willing to talk, but it also says a lot about like maybe how divisive this was. But they all told me a similar thing, which was that members of their admissions committees felt that it was unprofessional or inappropriate to discuss mental health in a job interview. So
Uh, I have
yeah,
thoughts about
so
that for sure.
oh yeah.
Wow.
So that I mean that threw me into the worst place mentally that I had been since failing out of school that first time. Like, because it had been all this work, like the culmination of sacrifice and hard work and locking away this important part of me. All of that had culminated in this, right? And I'm like, what was the point?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't worth it. Like I
Mm.
wasted all this time. And I think that's what pushed me to start doing music again because I was like, I'm not gonna delay this any longer because you never know how life is gonna turn out. So
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, and just like the match process in general, like so I don't know if you know this, but I'm Canadian. So, but we
Mhm.
have our own, is it called CARMS or is that, I mean, C maybe stands for Canada, Canadian. I think
I
about
think that's I think
yeah.
that's for Canadian.
But they still call it like the match or whatever, right?
Okay.
For residency. But from what I've seen, especially since joining the Hippocratic Collective and seeing some of like the content that some of my co-founders put out, like I mean, it just seems like it's what happens in Canada on steroids because I mean, there's just literally so many more people. It's
Mm,
just the population is larger and stuff. And it just
for sure.
seems like just very detrimental to everyone's mental health
Yeah,
involved,
it's crazy. It's
frankly.
crazy.
Oh my gosh. And so then you go through this, and I'm aware that it does seem like probably don't people don't talk about it, but like being unmatched is not uncommon. Like I mean, like it happens, right?
Yeah,
I don't know the stats, but it
I think it's
appears it
like
happens.
it definitely happens. I
Yeah.
think on an average year, maybe like 6 to 7% of people will go unmatched.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, which obviously is significant, like that's a good amount of people, but
Yeah.
it's still such a stigma. It's another stigmatized thing,
Yes.
is, in my head, I was like, oh my God, one stigma after another. Like I'm like racking them up,
Well,
like
especially that it
Pokemon
was
cards.
because you became unmatched because you were stigmatized,
Yeah, yeah,
So
exactly.
it's like getting pushed further out into the margins of like the shame circle. Like,
For
oh,
sure. I almost
brutal.
left medicine completely. Like I was like,
Sure.
I looked for different roles, like non-clinical roles for physicians without residency. Like
Mm.
I literally had a spreadsheet of all these different jobs and salaries and stuff, and I was this close to just, hopping off the boat, but I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah. So then how'd you hop into the boat you're in now? Which, I've heard of Harvard. Seems like you hopped into a boat that is quite prestigious, which is
I
pretty
got
cool.
super lucky. I so I kind of talked it through with my family and my support system, and I was like, okay, a lot of these opportunities I'm seeing at least want 1 year of residency. So let me
Right.
just go do a prelim year, like a preliminary year in internal medicine, which if I decide to go into something else down the road, that's required anyway. So it's like kind of a win-win. So I went to a prelim year and I was just browsing online, like on Reddit actually, and I came across this post about the field of occupational medicine. And I was like, I've never heard of this. And I mean, there's like 25 programs in the US. It's all about workplace health, public health. It's about making sure employees are safe, preventing work injuries, and learning the tools to not only treat the patients, but develop policies to affect change on a larger scale. And part of the residency is getting a master's in public health. And I was like, wait, do you have to pay for it? And they're like, no, it's like all the programs pay you to get a master's in public health. So I was
Wow.
like, this sounds right up my alley because I've always wanted to make change on a large scale. I've always wanted to be in the corporate business world, like where I can really make a difference. Um, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna apply for this. Let's see what happens. And um, ironically, like the thing that set me back the first time around in the match was, I think, what clinched my position at
Yeah.
Harvard because the program leadership really valued what I had been through and how resilient I had shown myself to be. So I think everything happens for a reason, absolutely. Like
Yeah.
I'm here now, like I'm at a prestigious institution in a specialty that's perfect for me, and I'm also singing again, like regularly. So it's like it all worked out really well.
Yeah. Like thinking back on the version of yourself when you got all the emails that said you didn't match or whatever.
Hmm.
And if you could tell him now, right? Like it's worth it. It's going to
Oh
be
my God.
okay.
Yeah. That memory is like seared into my brain. Like that was, oh,
Yeah.
crazy.
Formative though. Um,
Yeah.
so then I just also think it's really cool. And I'm curious if you had any qualms about sharing the story again. Like, because someone else, and even a past version of yourself's like, I'm shoving the stuff in the box. Like, you could have said, I really want this. And so last time they all said that if I shared this story, I wouldn't get into the program. So was
Hmm.
there a part of you that thought, like, okay, I'm not going to share it this time? Or were you all in? Like, what was that thought process like?
That was something that I really struggled with. Um,
Yeah.
just because I think when I went through everything I went through early on in college, I kind of made this promise to myself that, I'm just gonna be me. I'm gonna be authentic, and if that's not valued or accepted, like that's fine. I don't want to be there anyway.
Mm,
And I was definitely getting pressure from like my parents and stuff to like, oh, just play the game, like say what they want you to say. Like just, don't rock the boat. And I'm like, I thought about it, and then
yeah.
that's just not me. I mean, I'm not gonna I've never been someone that's just gonna people please. Like, and to me, that's people pleasing, where like I just hide
Right.
something that's inherent to who I am as a human,
Mm,
um, just to appease someone else's warped perceptions of what makes a good doctor, right?
yeah.
So I told myself like, no, I'm gonna keep talking about what I'm proud of, like the things about myself that I've accomplished that I earned, and I'm not gonna just shy away from those.
Nice.
So. Yeah, there's definitely some fear, and even sharing my story on social media and talking about it publicly, there's always fear, but at the end of the day, I'm a big believer that the right people and the right opportunities will find you if you're just yourself. So that's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to live by.
It's so fascinating how many of us human beings, and certainly those of us that have like run the gauntlet and got into medicine, um, we can spend a lot of our lives doing things out of fear that someone will tell us no or will judge us or will
Mm.
scorn us or, will other us in some way. So we're trying to like fit in and try and like play the game, you know. Um, when really, like you're saying, like when you think about playing the long game of like, you've got this one life,
Hmm.
you've got this one sort of shot at how things go. So if people tell you no because you tell them who you are, like they're doing you a favor,
100%.
you know?
100%.
That's a tough lesson to learn though, because that's not
It
what we're
is
told. We're like, oh,
absolutely
why did you do, like, you should have changed yourself so you got the thing,
right.
you know?
Right. Yeah, and I think I learned that lesson really early,
Mm,
luckily. Um, when I was kind of doing the work and I was 19 years old, just kicked out of school, like trying to
yeah.
make my way. Um, I think around that time I just learned not to take any BS and just be myself. And thankfully that has for better or for worse, I think for better. It's
For
stuck
better.
around. Yeah, for
Yeah.
definitely for better. But yeah, it's something that I encourage a lot of everyone I meet to do and just be themselves. But it is hard, like you said, we're conditioned in a certain way to act the opposite, especially in medicine,
Oh
unfortunately.
yeah. And like and in some settings of medicine, many settings, it's like not just like, oh, you get a stern talking to, like, there's some really horrific ways that people are
Oh yeah,
stigmatized and shamed and like abused emotionally.
absolutely. Yeah.
So a lot of that has to change. And part of how that changes is that we just keep showing up and being like, you can say what you want, but I'm just going to keep being
Yes,
myself.
exactly.
So you're welcome, actually.
I'm snapping for you. I don't want it to like come through on the microphone, but yeah, I
I love
agree.
it. So I'm curious then. So you're reclaiming your love of music. And then, so what was the spark to then say, I want to share this? Because it's one to be like, I'm singing by myself, or even like I'm singing in front of people. Like, what was it about the social media space that felt intriguing and something that you wanted to do?
Yeah, I think for me it was really putting myself out of my comfort zone and trying to grow as a human being, I
Mm,
think. Like I've always been fine with performing live, but um, social media has always been so hard for me and continues to be to this day. Like,
yeah,
not good for my mental health at all, but I'm just trying to
yeah,
work through it. But I, number one, wanted to push myself to do that because I knew if I wanted to make music a career, or at least part of my career, um, you have to have a social media presence. Like, you have to do that to get discovered or seen by the right people. Um, Number two, I also just really wanted to um, find a way to build community and
yeah.
build a platform where I could share my story about medicine and mental health and the importance of authenticity and vulnerability. So I think the platform I'm trying to build is like a marriage of all of those things,
Mm,
um, just fostering a more empathetic, vulnerable world in general, while
yeah.
also pursuing my dream and sharing, the thing that I feel like I'm on earth to do. Um, so yeah, that's a complicated answer. I just think it may even sound like I don't know if my social media purpose is even that clear. And I don't think I do. I feel like I'm just doing it. I'm on
Yeah.
this ride and I'm doing my best, but it seems to be working okay so far. So
Yeah. I mean, like I'm a big believer in like knowing what lights you up,
yeah.
knowing what your general purpose is in terms of like when I'm doing this, I am fully myself, and then practicing doing that as much as possible in as many spaces as possible. And that's my version of like having a plan at this point
Mm,
versus being like, here's my 5 year trajectory of
yeah.
the numbers and the
That's not me at
digits. And
all.
I'm like, ah, that sounds
Yeah, no.
because like when does it turn out that way anyway? Like,
Never.
there was moments where you would have had a plan and then it didn't go your way, and then now you're
Exactly.
devastated if you think that if it doesn't look exactly the way you thought it would, then it's all for nothing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
I'm in the exact same thinking. Like in the last like 5 or 7 years of my life, there's been so many random curveballs thrown. I'm like, I'm
Mm,
not gonna make a 5 year, 10 year plan. Like, come on,
yeah,
I'm just gonna, take it day by day,
totally. I
do
mean,
my
like
best.
2020, people had
Oh,
plans in 2020.
oh my God.
And then the universe said, LOL, pandemic instead. So that, like, it's just something just to say that the way that you're approaching things sounds perfectly fine to me.
Oh
So
yeah. And
validate. Yeah.
funny story about that since you bring up 2020. I don't know if it's funny, but it's like depressingly funny, but
Yeah.
um of course, I'm sure you know about the USMLEs and like the
I've
testing.
heard, yes. Hmm.
Yeah, okay. So, like step one, at least when I was in med school, step one was like the most important one,
Mm,
because it kind of locks doors or opens doors to specialties because that's like the benchmark.
yeah.
So I remember getting to med school and I was like, all right, this is the plan. Like I'm gonna work really hard. I'm gonna just do my best, learn all the material. Gonna take step one before my third year rotation start, and I'm gonna get above X score because I
Hmm.
wanted to go into competitive specialties, and I didn't want any doors to be locked for me. So I said, this is what's gonna happen. Um, Everything was going according to plan, like exceeding my plans, right?
Mm.
And then the day before my test, COVID shuts down everything.
Oh my
Literally one day
gosh.
before. Like I had taken all the practice tests, I had finished all the
Oh,
questions, I did everything. And
no.
I'm sure like when you take a test and you're studying for a big test, you
Yeah.
peak at a certain point. Like it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
a
Before the
a
brain
two or
starts
3 day
melting.
peak. Exactly.
Yeah.
I had peaked at the perfect time. I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get like the best score in the history of my school." Like I was that confident. I'm like, I'm so excited. And yeah, just got the whole plan just down the drain like that. So
Oh my
all
gosh.
that to say, like what you just said is so true.
Yeah.
You have to just kind of take it day by day and roll with the punches because you
Yeah.
never know what life is going to throw at you.
You really don't. And I think then sometimes people then would say like, oh, so then what's the point of ever wanting anything or planning anything? But I just love the example that you're sharing for yourself of like you have dreams, you have aspirations, you have ideas of where you want to go,
Hmm.
but life has told you to maybe not make such specific plans.
Exactly. Exactly. That's
And
exactly it.
and isn't it kind of fun how when you work that way, what's happening for me if certainly is like I'll be like, yeah, oh, I would really love this or this kind of thing, and we'll see how it goes. And then it gets to sort of surprise you.
Yeah,
Like you don't actually know what's happening in the next chapter of the book. So you're like, ooh, what's going to happen next?
exactly.
Fun. So
Oh
then
yeah.
with the singing, do you write and sing your own music as well? Or like I see covers, but and so or is this like a secret? I don't know. What was
No,
that face?
no,
Oh,
not a
okay.
secret. I only made that face because I wish I was better at songwriting.
Mm,
I think that's like the perfectionist in me that like in medicine we're all type A, we're
yeah.
all very like if we're not going to do something really well, we don't want to do it sometimes. And I
Yeah.
definitely fall into that trap. Um, so I'm trying to get myself to get comfortable with being bad. Like,
Yeah.
I want to get comfortable with just writing crappy songs because that's the only way that I'm going to be able to ever write good songs.
100%.
So for now, it's just covers, but hopefully in the future I'll do some original stuff. That's the plan at least.
Cool. And you
And
can
we
like
all know how
behind the
plans go.
scenes, like you can just be practicing being bad at it because it is
Exactly.
definitely the only way to be good at it is to be bad at it first.
100%. Yeah, even
Yeah.
Ed Sheeran says I saw an interview with Ed Sheeran the other day and he said, "Yeah, you have to I think he used a bad word, like the S word, but he said
Hmm.
you have to be comfortable being the S word in
Yeah.
order to make good songs. And like every day, sometimes, even today, I'm still terrible at
Yeah.
times, and you just don't see it. So that's all it is.
That's great. Do you have like favorite artists, favorite genres of music? Like what's your like favorite things to sing?
I'm definitely a big pop rock kind of guy. Like, I really like singing ballads, like short, not
Mm,
short, like sad, slow songs, like "Dancing on My Own" by Callum Scott, or
mm,
like "Unsteady" by Ex Ambassadors, like that. Those kinds of emotional songs,
mm.
I really vibe with, and I feel like um, really fit my voice. But yeah, I can't really sing country or like hard rock. It's definitely more of the top 40s pop, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, everyone's voice is a different style, right? That, like you
Absolutely.
say, what
Different
suits your
instrument.
voice. Yeah. That's been actually really interesting. I joined an online choir over the past couple of years
Oh, that's
for
awesome.
it is for Canadian women physicians, so it's like a very niche,
That's
cute
so niche. I
group.
love that
It's
though.
so
That's
fun.
really cool.
And we've had a few people come in and give us like workshops, and I just like I've obviously known how people sing in theory and but just really thinking of it as an instrument and really thinking about the vocal cords and like that there's different methodologies of how to do it well, how to do it without
Hmm.
hurting your voice, like all of those sorts of things has been really fascinating and has really like connected me to a part of my body I use all the time. Like I'm literally using it right now. But that's one of the
Exactly.
things that's cool when you have a passion, like it even in medicine, like it connects you to a part of the body that maybe you learned about, but now you're like experiencing that part of the body.
Exactly. Yeah, I think about all the little muscles that are controlling the movement of the
Mm,
chords a lot. Um, but it's tough because you have to be careful as a musician not to overthink either. Because like if you
right.
start thinking about the little muscles and the way your chords are feeling at a certain time, you're gonna
Yeah.
psych yourself out and you're not gonna be able to do it. So that's like it's a slippery slope.
Yeah. Like I've heard a lot from like different kinds of artists or whatever. It's like it's useful to know the technicalities and know the technical, and then you kind of have to throw it away and just like feel it. Do you find
Exactly.
that's true for you? Okay. That's cool.
100%. Like if I think too hard, I'm not
Yeah.
going to sound good. Like
Yeah.
I just my technique goes out the window when I
Mm.
think too much about my technique.
Yes.
It's when I'm just completely zoned in and just feeling the music and just having a good time.
Yeah.
That's when I sound my best, for
Mm.
sure.
And like, by the way, if people are listening and being like, I can't relate because I don't sing, like this exact same advice applies to practicing medicine. Like, I don't know if
Oh,
you found this
100%.
yet, but I know when I was first, and I mean, part of it's natural. Like when you're first learning, you're more self conscious. You're like literally trying in your brain to remember what to say. But for me, certainly in those early years, I was a big, big people pleaser. And so I was constantly trying to be like, what do they want? What will make them happy?
Mm,
Like I had and like, oh, I said that wrong. And like all of those like self conscious, self critical thoughts. And then I couldn't actually be connected to them at all, you
exactly.
know?
It's so hard not to do that though in medicine because that's the way the training is, which I hate
Yes.
because that is not it's completely counter to practicing good medicine. because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like if you go into a patient room and you're basically reading off a script, like, and which is
Yes.
funny because in medical training, when they talk to you and teach you about different illnesses and how to treat them, they call them illness scripts. They're like, here's your illness script for that type of
What?
thing.
I've
It's
never
like,
heard that.
you've never heard that?
That's
Yeah, no, I've like they said that in my school. It's like
oh
this is
my
your
gosh.
like have your different scripts in your head so you know kind of the algorithm to move through for each condition. Which I get that there's value to that, but at the same time, you have to be able to go in and just talk to the patients like human beings and have a
Yes.
conversation where it's dynamic. Things are going to change. Like
Yeah.
the symptoms are going to be different. They might have pneumonia, but their symptoms might be different than the pneumonia patient from across the hall. Like
Yes.
you have to tailor your treatment to the patient.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
think that's often lost in medical training, especially like as medical students and residents.
Yeah.
Um, it almost becomes too formulaic, and I think maybe you're practicing technically good medicine when you're following a formula to the T, but in my opinion, it's not good overall medicine because you're not being a human being. You're just being like a robot.
Like literally that version of a doctor can and probably will be replaced by AI, right? And that's
Yeah.
maybe that's fine. Maybe that'll leave more
Right.
like then we'll actually catch up because there's not enough doctors anyway. But
Exactly.
like the version, yeah, where you're actually connecting with where the patient's at, you're using their language. Like it's
Yes.
I'm a family physician, and one of the best parts that makes my job fun and in some ways way easier than if I was just meeting people for the first time all the time is like there's certain patients and like what they say and what comes out of their mouth, like I have learned what it means behind the scenes, you
Oh
know?
yeah,
So
absolutely.
whether it's like the way they say something, some people it's maybe because of different levels of education or quirky ways of speaking, but I like know what they mean. I have
Yeah.
certain patients who like say they have like mental health conditions, including like psychosis. And so they'll tell me a story that sounds just like a straightforward, like a piece of their delusion. But I've learned that like certain stories are actually what come up when they have certain
Interesting.
symptoms. Like it's like
Wow.
it's so fun, honestly. Like I
That's
really
really cool
enjoy
to be
that
able to
part of it.
build that kind of relationship with your patients, like on a
Yeah,
long-term, scale. That's really
that's
cool.
it. Because like you can't like how can you learn that in a 15-minute or 30-minute encounter with someone,
For
right? Like it's
sure.
over time.
For
And so
sure.
then if you were instead thinking, it's interesting. So I'll have learners come and learn from me, and especially for these sorts of patients, they're understandably like flummoxed. They're like, what's happening, how can you, and so it's but it's sort of fun to say like, right, yeah, so like none of your OSCE algorithm cutie little things, and they can
Yeah,
say after they're like, I feel like I didn't do anything, and you're like, that means you missed it because like so much is happening in those rooms, and
exactly.
you can still be running those algorithms, you can still be thinking very curiously, and you're still trying to suss out if there's anything, somatically happening with them, but you
Exactly.
gotta speak their language.
100%. I always say that, and speaking their language or meeting them where they're at is something I
Yes.
say a lot because
Yes.
at the end of the day, like, strip away the title, strip away the education, like, that's all BS. You're human beings. You are two human beings in a room.
Yeah.
That's what you are, right? Um, People forget that, and I think even patients forget that because they see a lot of patients I know at least see doctors as like these, I don't know, unflappable like
Mm,
beings that are above, somehow
yeah.
above them. And I always remind patients, I'm like, man, I'm just a dude. Like I'm a dude that went
It's
to
great.
school. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I'm just a guy. Like let's just talk like
Mm,
two guys. Like if it's a male patient or, let's just talk like two humans.
yeah.
Um, and part of that is also not being afraid to just be yourself with your patients and talk to them about who you are and what
Mm,
makes you human, right? A lot of physicians frown upon that. They're like, no, like no personal details talking to patients. Like you can't talk about, your own medical issues or whatever. Like I completely disagree with that because I think the most successful patient encounters I've had are the ones where we bond about both suffering from depression. We bond
oh.
about how, yeah, sometimes I struggle getting out of bed too, or
Mm,
hey, I can't sleep most nights either, but I'm trying. Or hey,
That's
like
cool.
diet and exercise is hard for me too. I'm trying my best, but it's not perfect. Like,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to admit your flaws. Flaws, quote unquote. They're not flaws. They're just human. They're just being human, right? Don't be afraid to admit the things you struggle with and talk about them with your patients because they're going to be a lot more likely to listen to a doctor that is human and comes across human and is on their level and doesn't act superior to them in any way, you know?
Yeah. I love hearing how much you share of yourself. And I'm curious, are there times where that hasn't gone well or where you've received feedback either from patients or from, the person observing you of like, oh, don't share too much or like, how has that gone for you? It sounds like obviously sometimes it's like super successful and I believe
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think quite often it's really successful. I, I think in med school during one of my rotations, I was very like open with a patient, and I was being observed by an attending, and I was told like you shouldn't be bringing stuff like that up. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it should be about the patient. And I'm like, it is about the patient. I'm just, I'm sharing
Yes.
parts of myself
For them.
because I'm trying to relate to the patient and
Yeah.
make them understand that, you know, what they're going through is acceptable. And it's
Mm.
not like
Yeah.
it doesn't make them a worse human being because they're struggling with dieting and exercising or struggling with sleep, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so I think ever since then, I stopped doing it when I was being observed. Like I just went
Yeah.
through the formula because I didn't want to deal with the the blowback. But of course, when I'm on my own and as a resident, like when I'm talking to patients and stuff, I'm very much always like that, very
Mm.
open. But I will also say it's situation dependent, right? Like
Yeah.
not you can maybe it's just me. I don't want to say like you as in everyone can tell, but I certainly am able to kind of tell when someone's going to be receptive to that level of
Yes.
vulnerability and when someone's not.
Yes.
Um, Sometimes I'll just go completely by the book because that's what I can tell the person wants
Yeah.
and excuse me, what they need from me. But most of the time, you can tell someone is getting comfortable and you're building rapport and then,
Yeah.
you can tell they'll respond positively. So that's kind of it's very situation dependent.
Totally. And I feel like you can tell. It's funny because like we sometimes are taught these rules because it's like
Yeah,
some patients will be turned off by it and you're like, yeah. And I don't do that with those patients because you can tell
exactly.
pretty early. It's like even how they approach you. Are they treating you like they almost want you to act superior because that they're used to that paternalistic model that soothes them? Like
Exactly.
you have all these little micro cues when you're in a room with the patient, and I think we
100%.
can trust ourselves to know that.
Exactly. That's what I always tell people, like, trust yourself. But I don't know. I think it's obviously different for each person.
For
And
sure.
I can't speak for everyone, but I think we all have that capability, like you said, as
Yeah,
providers.
I believe it too. Yes. Um, so I would love to hear a bit about how it's going in occupational medicine residency. Is there anything that you're really like nerding out about? Like especially I am very passionate about how for everybody, certainly people in healthcare, but everybody like um that we deeply need to rethink how we treat humans at work.
Yeah, 100%.
And like
100%.
some of the like dogmas and philosophies that we have in healthcare for sure about like how we have to deliver work and how we have to act at work and what the idea of full time and part time. I could go in a million ranty directions to be honest.
Yeah.
I also have a lot of rants about how many different employers treat their employees and I see them as their patient as I'm, you know, filling out complex and punitive disability forms versus, like all of
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
So I am deeply interested in your
That's
professional
awesome. Yeah.
philosophy. And so, yeah, like what are you noticing that you're really enjoying as a part of occupational medicine? Are you noticing certain ideas or policies that are of interest or intriguing you? Tell me.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. There's a lot of pieces to it. I really love that, you we get to think about things on a very high level, which I think is
Yeah.
really cool because rather than just seeing the patient, like workers' compensation, we see work injuries, so we bring them in the clinic, and rather than just treating the patient, we also start thinking about what's your work setup like? Like, what are your responsibilities at work?
Hmm.
Um, what can we do or talk to your employer about to like help you get certain accommodations or like different materials or how can we make your workplace safer? And oftentimes we'll even go on site visits to go to these employers and like
Oh, cool.
see where people are working and identify different hazards, different like ergonomic issues, all of that stuff. Like it's really, really cool. And I think for me, what I really want to focus on in the future is maybe working as a medical director or something for a big company where I
Cool.
can design policies to really make the whole workplace safer and also focus on mental health and wellness of the employees too, and incorporate all of these different things into a nice comprehensive program. So I think that's probably my favorite part of it. And it's especially important to me as what we talked about already, my journey with mental health and medicine and the stigma I faced.
Mm.
Having the opportunity to maybe go into a workplace one day or maybe a hospital system and play a role in decreasing that stigma on, a large scale. I think that's something I would love to do and is right up my alley with this type of training. So it's really a lot of different things.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I
I've
love
always
it.
been curious with occupational medicine because, so like, as a family doc and a generalist, I sometimes pretend that I'm occupational. I'm asked to be
Yeah,
one, though I
of course.
have
Yeah.
no formal training. Like every time I fill out those, I don't know if they would call them functional ability forms in the States, but the like, how many pounds should they
Yep.
lift? And I'm like, you know who I'm asking? I'm like, patient, what do you think? Do you think
Right.
I'm actually in my 15-minute appointment with this person while I'm also renewing their birth control, etc., that I have pounds around that I'm like asking them to lift? So my patients are their own occupational doctors. I'll admit that freely.
Yeah.
And the thing that is tricky for me in my role is like my primary objective is to be this person's like in a therapeutic alliance with this person.
For
And
sure.
so sometimes these forms then become like a barrier between me and the patient.
Hmm.
Often certain like I see learners or colleagues where it's like they feel like it's their job to like find out if the patient's being truthful or not, and that's tricky.
Yeah.
And also, say you do your form and then that person is like denied, then sometimes the patient thinks that's because you didn't fill it out good enough.
Right.
Like it's, I would actually prefer if disability claims were not my job. I actually like don't think
Yeah.
it's the right place in the healthcare system. I actually think something that's like an occupational medicine clinic would be
Yep.
better because you would be trained to actually assess
Absolutely.
them properly. Like it would just be on so many levels. One of the pieces I've wondered about that is, and maybe I would imagine you talk about it in your program, like the ethics of who pays you and how
Hmm.
you deal with potential conflicts of interest. Like I have my conflict of interest where I'm like, listen, I'm just going to believe this patient. So
Right.
whatever, versus like, say you work for a company, there could
Hmm.
be potential pressures of like, oh, you want to put in this policy, but it's going to cost us more money. Do you know what I mean? Is that
For sure.
something?
For
It's
sure.
not a fully formed question, but I've just been curious, like, what are the options of who can employ someone in occupational medicine, and like, do you talk about and think about the conflict of interest pieces that can come along with that?
No, that's a really good question and a good thought. I think it depends on the context and the setting. So like for
Yeah,
example, if I was an occupational medicine physician that's employed by like I don't know, like Google or GM or
yeah,
something like some kind of company, right? And I'm like their medical director. Then in that scenario, like I am an employee of that company. So like I think ultimately that is where the allegiance is. Like you have
yeah.
to do your job and like you have to adhere to whatever guidelines are set by the higher ups. the nice thing about general clinical occupational medicine, which these like medical director roles for corporations will typically not do a lot of clinical stuff. Like it will
Mm,
be more administrative from what I
yeah,
understand. Of course, I'm still early in my training, so I'm still learning. But
yeah,
the great thing about clinical occupational medicine is, you're kind of a third party. You're a middleman, right?
yes,
So yeah, you're getting paid by either workers' comp or sometimes by the company, but you also still have that obligation to the patient and you have
yeah,
that relationship. Um, it is a little bit difficult sometimes because you have to have the interests of both the company and the patient in mind, right?
yeah,
So I think, at least for me, it's all about just approaching every encounter with transparency and
mm,
honesty. Like, I think as long as you do that, even in this field, like you're not going to go wrong because,
yeah,
just be true to your assessment and make sure that you have the patient's health in mind. And if that means they have to be out for longer,
yeah.
yeah, maybe the company will be annoyed, but that's you explain, hey, this is my medical assessment, and this is for the good of your company because you want your employee to be healthy
Well,
and
that's
not have
it,
any issues.
right? Like that's like
Hmm.
if even if they forget that, and it seems like many employers do, but like you actually want to have well employees. And if
Yeah,
your employee is
100%.
not well, it's actually better if they're not there or they're there as much as they can stay well, like
Exactly.
modified duties or hours or something, right?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. And I
yeah.
think I think a lot of it is communication and just making sure that you're crystal clear in documentation and again, just being transparent about how the visit went and here's my assessment. Like, listen, if this is their job responsibilities, like it's not safe for either party, like for you guys to have them there or for them to be there. Like it's better to just let them heal up. And I think as long as you do that, I've never really run into any issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just get annoyed sometimes when they're like, ask more questions. It's like, yes, this person took longer to heal than anticipated. But
Right.
in order, I usually, one of my lines is like, in order for them to successfully return to work, this is what
Right.
they need. So it's like, I'm not just doing this to bug you. I'm doing this so that they can successfully return to help you. Don't you want that?
Exactly. Well,
Okay.
the nice thing too about most well, like all work injuries in the US are run through the workers' compensation system, which is has a lot of protections built in for the employees. So oftentimes there's like a case manager or another party that kind of handles any of those inquiries from the employer.
Hmm.
Um, so I think the system they have is working pretty well, at
That's
least for
cool.
as far as I can tell, um,
Yeah,
for the most part.
that's lovely. So then how many more years of schooling then?
So one more year of residency and then I'll be
Oh my gosh.
out in the world. Yeah. So I'm excited for this coming year because I'll be all clinic rotations. So that first year of occupational medicine residency was mostly MPH and just a
Right.
little bit of clinic. So this next year will be really learning the ins and outs of clinical practice. Like all these questions that you're asking me, I bet I will be able to give you a much better answer next year
Right.
if we sit
Okay,
down at the
cool.
same time,
Hmm.
because I'll be able to get exposure to all these different areas of practice. So I'm excited for that.
Nice. And then the dream after is professional singer and medical director of a big corporation. Or
That
those the dreams, or
yeah, I mean, in terms of a medical career, I do think I'd like to go into the corporate medicine route,
hmm,
and try to change the work lives of employees at like a big enough corporation where like you can really affect some real change.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I think if music takes off, who knows? I don't know what'll happen, but I think either way, I want to have both in my life
mm,
in some capacity. Whether
yeah,
that means like medicine one day becomes a side gig, which I doubt will ever happen, but like, even if I was like a full-time musician at some point, I think I would still do like half a day of clinic a week or something, like just to keep it going.
yeah. It's very fun to have multiple passions
Yeah, I
and
agree.
multiple
Yeah.
ways to like use your services and gifts. Like, right? Like,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. And I
that's
love
awesome.
seeing patients. I love my job. I love what I do. So, it's not like a burden to do it. So I know I would want to keep doing it no matter what.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So the last question I always ask everyone is like, considering the folks that are listening in, who majority work in healthcare, and often they're have experiences of burnout or have felt overwhelmed themselves, and they recognize like something about how they've been trained and socialized to be in medicine has stripped them of feeling as human as they want to be. And they listen
Mm,
because my podcast is all about like how to be human in medicine, how to reclaim your humanity from all these like inhuman stories that we're taught. And
right.
so, say someone's listening, and yeah, like I would say, especially like say someone's listening and they feel like a part of themselves, they have to keep locked in a box, whether it's like a medical condition that they feel like they can't be open about, or a passion, like you kind of
Mm,
have history of both of those things, right?
for
And
sure.
they're scared to like share it, but they're feeling like, wow, after hearing your story, maybe they'd want to. What words of like encouragement or wisdom would you want to offer to them?
I think I would say that life is too short to not be you.
Mm,
It's too short to just hide away. There's no point in hiding. Um, I think I regret not singing for all those years.
mm.
Like looking back, I really, really regret locking away that part of myself for so long. Um, so if someone is listening who is going through something similar, I would say, don't do what I did. Like, learn from that mistake that I made and keep doing the things that make you you, that make you human. And I guarantee like you'll start feeling better and you'll feel more authentic and you'll be able to relate to your patients more if you're in healthcare. You'll be able to perform better at all of your responsibilities at work or school or whatever you're at. Um, And as long as you're yourself and you do the things that make you happy, the right opportunities will come and the right people will come. Um, all you're doing by keeping up with those positive things and continuing to be authentic in yourself, all you're doing is making sure that you're happy and keeping people away that you don't even want to be around you anyway, you know?
Ah, oh, beautifully said. Thank you. So if people want to follow your journey, where can they find you on the internet?
Oh gosh. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. You can search my name, which will like be on the podcast somewhere, or
Yep.
you can also search like the singing doctor on these platforms. Just kind of a funny little username that I came
It's
up with
great.
just because
Very
I was like, this
catchy.
is
Yes.
two little things about me. So here we go. It's funny because I was like, I want to merge these two pieces of myself, and it's literally the two pieces, like the doctor part and the singing part. So it
Yes.
worked out. But yeah, I would love to see you guys on any of these platforms and hope to connect with some of you. I'm always around if anyone needs feedback or advice or wants to talk about something they're going through. Just feel free to send me a message and we can also talk. So yeah.
Ah, that's lovely. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I've really loved getting to know you. And I just think there's so much in your story that it's so powerful to share. And the way that you
Mhm.
share it is really like impactful. So I
Oh,
want to
thank you
encourage
so
you to keep
much.
going because I'm like, yes, if folks like you are in healthcare with me, then like I think we're going to be okay.
Oh, thank you so much, Joan. Thank you for having me. And I love this platform that you're creating and just encouraging people to be themselves and continue being human. I think it's super beautiful, and I'm just grateful to play a small part in what you're building. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And for everyone listening, we'll talk to you next week.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
I would love to take this work deeper with you. Visit joanchanmd.com today and discover my growing menu of options for restorative medical education to suit your learning needs. I offer one-on-one coaching, customized workshops, and self-study courses that allow you to connect not only with my work on a deeper level, but also with other healthcare humans just like you. So, if you want to start humanizing your work in healthcare to a deeper level and do it in community with others, please visit joanchanmd.com and find those options and what fits you and your life today.